of ways and levels to severity that brains can be damaged. So, mao na siya nga, bawa, pag human yung disgust siya, naglahi ang way sa pag-function sa yung brain. So, tung dati siya nga, hilig siya magbasa, karon marag, naanuhan na siya sa, kanang di na siya maka-analyze, di na siya makabasa dayon. So, mao na ang nag-cause sa nag-cause sa damage ato sa iyang brain kay katong iyang pag-accident. So, nag-impairs ang function. So we have here perceptual issues in reading. So a very basic but no important step in reading is the activation of our ability to recognize letters. When you are reading, you somehow manage to perceive the correct letter when it is presented in a wide array of type styles and typefaces. For example, you can perceive it correctly in capital or lower forms and even in cursive forms. So when learning to read, novice readers must come to master two basic kinds of processes. We have lexical processes and comprehension processes. So, perceptual issues in reading, guys, kay there are important steps in reading is the activation of our ability to recognize letters. Kaya diba, pag magbasa ka, kailangan nimo sa imong sarili na dali lang ka maka-recognize of letters. Kay how come na mabasa nimo ang isa ka word if dili ka maka-recognize og letter. So when you're reading, you somehow manage to perceive the correct letter when it is presented in a wide array of type styles and typefaces. So diba, pag magbasa ta, kailangan mga fonts. So usay mag-iba-iba ang fonts, ang usay mag-cursive. So kita as a reader, gina-perceive na to ang correct letter para mabasa po na to ang correct word. So next, so we have here fixations and reading speed. When we read, our eyes do not move smoothly along a page or even along in line of text. Rather, our eyes move in saccades, rapid sequential movements as they fixate on successive clump of text. So, di ba, pag magbasa ta, guys, dili man siya, atong mata, dili siya mag-move along the page. Kay, of course, paano ni mo mabasa tong word if bisag asa-asa ka magtanaw? So, pag mag-read ta, of course, word per word, ato siyang ginasundan as they fixate on successive clump of the text para ma-recognize po nato ang next word na ato ang basahon. So the fixations are like a series of snapshots and are variable length. So readers fixate for a longer time on longer words than on shorter words. So ma-fixate na to, mas ma-fixate pa, mas longer ang pag-fixate sa readers sa mga longer words. And of course, mas daghan og letters, mas daghan ka og pronunciations or syllables na i-dictate. So the last word of the sentence also seems to receive an extra long fixation time. Okay, of course, ang last word sa isa ka sentence mo man ay easily na ma-remember. So, maupo to siya ang maka-receive of long extra fixation time. So, next. Lexical access. An important aspect of reading is lexical access, the identification of a word that allows us to gain access to the meaning of the word from memory. So, most psychologists who study reading believe that lexical access is an interactive process. It combines information of different kinds such as pictures, letters, and the letters themselves, and the words comprising letters. So, ang lexical access important siya sa, as a part of our reading comprehension, guys. Kay it gives importance sa aspect of reading na to, and it helps us to identify the word and allows us to gain access to the meaning of the word. Halimbawa, kitaan kag word na kind. So pag makita nimo tong word na kind, easily nimo siya ma-identify kay of course gagamit ka sa imong lexical access kay ang word na to mahatagan nimo siya meaning sa imuha ba pag kita nimo sa word oy kind, so ikaw mismo mabal-an nimo kung unsa to ang meaning sa word. So most psychologists who study reading believe that lexical access is an interactive process. It combines information of different kinds such as features of letters and letters themselves and the words comprising two letters. So mas dali na to pud ma identify ang isa ka word if ang mga features sa letter kay dali lang nato siya ma-recognize, like dili lahi-lahi ang fonts, so dili pod iba-iba ang pagkasulat, so the letter themselves sila pod ang maghatag sa ato og help para dali lang nato ma-identify ang isa ka word. So investigators develop an interactive activation model suggesting that activation of particular lexical elements occurs at multiple levels. So moreover, activity at each of the levels is interactive. The interactive activation model distinguished among three levels of processing, like feature level, letter level, and word level. So ang interactive activation kay magna siya 3 levels para dali nimo maano ang word. So mo ni siya. So the model assumes that information at each level is represented separately in memory. Information passes from one level to another directionally. In other words, processing occurs in each of the two directions. So kaning picture sa right side guys, ang first level, it is bottom up, starting with sensory data and working up higher level of cognitive processing. So second is the top down, starting the high level cognition, operating prior knowledge and experiences related to the given context. So dara nimo makita ang mga words na nabuo from the first level sa mga features pa lang. So third, the interactive view implies that not only do we use the visually or orally perceptible features of the letters to help us identify words, but we also use the features we already know about words to help us identify letters. So maggamit tag ato ang mga stock knowledge or memories para easily identify nato ang isa ka word dire na wala pa siya hindi pa siya nabuon, pa lang letters pa lang. So if for example nagbutang og word na F, O, tapos blank and D, so para sa ato di ba kay always nato sa atong utak pag nakita nimo to nga word mo hadang isipon kay food kay di ba F, O, blank and D. So for us maisipan din nato ato kay food kay mas always nato siya makita and recognize naman ang words. So next we have configural superiority effect and the object superiority effect. So support a number of word recognition models have been stimulated on computers. Both models apply predicted a word superiority effect as well as the pursued word superiority effect. The word superiority effect is similar to the configural superiority effect and the object superiority effect. So word superiority effect dahil kay letters are read more easily when they are embedded with words than they are presented either in isolation or with letters that do not form words. So people take substantially longer to read unrelated letters than to read letters from a word. So sentence superiority effect is people take about twice as long read unrelated words as they read words in a sentence and is observed superior identification of a posted word in a briefly presented sequence of words when the sequence is syntactically correct. So intelligence and lexical access speed. So Lexical access speed is investigation on information processing and intelligence have focused on lexical access speed and the speed with which we can retrieve information about words stored in our long-term memories. So this speed can be measured in letter matching. So letter matching katugong pagibaan kag letters na halimbawa kanina letter is paired ba with this letter. So example is participants are shown pairs of letters such as A or A big and A small or A big or B small. For each pair, they indicate whether the letter constitute a match in name. So, example is A big and A small match in name of letter of the alphabet, but A big and B small do not. So, they also are given simpler tasks where they are asked to indicate whether the letters match physically, like A big and AA are physically identical, whereas A big and A small are not. So discourse. So guys, discourse involves unit of language larger than individual sentences in conversations, lectures, stories, essays, and even textbooks. So discourse can also be when someone expresses their ideas on a particular subject in a formal or orderly way, either verbally or in writing. So an example of discourse is when you discuss something with your friends in person or over in chat platform. So discourse di ka mag-include siya sa communication. So it involves units of language larger than individual sentences in conversations. So also ang discourse kaya when someone expresses their ideas in particularly, so in formal ba or in orderly way. So halimbawa kamo sa mga friends nag-talk mo in chat box man or in personal, also kana siya kay example sa discourse. So next, discourse. For understanding discourse, we often rely not only to our knowledge of discourse structure but also our knowledge of broad physical, social, and cultural context with which the discourse is presented. Our understanding of the meaning of the paragraph is influenced by our existing knowledge and expectation. So ato ang knowledge and expectation guys kay naapektuhan gyapon siya sa discourse. And also dili ta naga-rely sa ato ang own knowledge pag pag nagina-understand nimo ang isa ka word or ang isa ka or kapag nagabasa ka, so kailangan nimo discourse. So for example, this cognitive psychology book will be easier to read if you have taken an introductory psychology course than if you have taken such a course. So di ba magbasa o ka og psychology book, pag ikaw imong course kay naa sa mga accountancy, di ba dili man ka easily makarelate sa book. So kailangan gyud nimo og background mo na siya ginaingon ka, kailangan to og background pag magbasa ta og book. So pag ikaw accountancy, so lahi imong mga prior knowledge kay ang imong ginabasa kay psychology book man, so kailangan ang imong background is about psychology. So ingana siya. So, comprehending known words, retrieving word meaning from memory. So, semantic encoding is process by which we translate sensory information that is written in words we see, so into meaningful representation. So, this representation is based on our understanding of meanings of words. In lexical access, we identify words based on our letter combination. We thereby activate our memory regard to that words. So in systematic encoding, we take next step and gain access to the meaning of the word stored in memory. So sometimes we cannot semantically encode the word because its meaning does not already exist in memory. So when then must find another way in which we derive the meanings of the words, such as noting the context in which we read them. So in children, vocabulary size is positively related to performance on a numbers and semantic understanding tasks, including retelling, both written and oral, and decoding ability, and the ability to draw inferences across a sentence. So usay di ba magbasa ta og word, so dili na to di ba maintindihan na yung meaning, like kanang mga ano na mga word, kanang mga lisod-lisod, so need na to siya i-search, or need na to magbasa pa og more na mga sentences para na to siya maintindihan. So sa ano guys, sa mga children, kailangan na to ang retelling, kay kanang di ba pag bata pa man gyud dili man sila always mag-study, so na yung mga bata na malimutan din ba, malimtan din nila ang mga gibasa or meaning sa word. So di na to mag-retell sa ilaha if unsa to gina-retell na to na vocabulary, or pwede sa written. So also sa semantic encoding, naasad ang ability to draw, kay di ba pag sa mga bata, pag dili pa nila maintindihan, mas gina-prefer sa mga teachers or mga tutors na i-draw tong mga words or mga sa mga scenarios na ginaingon, kay mas ano daw, mas dali na maintindihan sa mga bata pag gina-draw. Kay of course ano man siya kanang interesting pag mga drawing. So ang uban ng mga teachers or tutors kay mag-draw sila para mas maging interesado ang bata sa ilahang ginatudlo. So next, comprehending unknown words, deriving word meaning from context. So word meaning from context, another way in which we are having larger vocabulary contributes to text comprehension, is through learning from context. Whenever we cannot semantically encode a word because its meaning is not already stored in our memory, we must engage in some kind of strategy to derive meaning from the text. So in general, we must either search for the meaning using external resources such as dictionaries or teachers, or formulate the meaning. So para ma-derive or mabalaan na to ang mga meaning sa mga known words guys, kay we can use dictionaries, Google, kung wala mo internet, so dictionary pwede mo magbasa-basa, and of course our teacher pwede to mag-ask sa ilaha. So using context cues, we formulate the meaning based on our existing information stored in memory. So na yung mga uban na words na mabalaan na to ang mga meaning, kay diba natin mga stored memory, stock knowledge, or unsa pa dira. So na to daay background na word. So they do so not by using external resources, but by figure out the meanings of the phrases from the surrounding information. So for example, if you try to look up the word phrases in the dictionary, you didn't find it there. From the structure of the sentence, you probably figure that phrases is a noun. From the surrounding context, you probably figured that it is a noun having something to do with words or vocabulary. So in fact, phrases is a nonsense word we use as a placeholder for the words to show how you would gain fairly good idea of a word's non-meaning from its context. So next, comprehending ideas, propositional representation. As we read, we try to hold as much information as possible in working active memory to understand what we read. So however, we do not try to store the exact words we read in working active memory. Rather, we try to extract the fundamental ideas from groups of words. When we store those fundamental ideas in a simplified representational form in working memory. So the representational form for these fundamental ideas is the proposition. Proposition is a suffix to say that a proposition is the briefest unit of a language that can independently found to be true or false. So for example, the sentence penguins are birds and penguins can fly, so contains two propositions, you can verify independently whether penguins are birds and whether penguins can fly. In general, propositions assert, an action or a relationship. So last, representing the text in mental models. So once words are semantically encoded or their meaning is derived from the used context, the reader still must create a mental model of the text that is being read. So the mental model stimulates what's going on in the world. So a mental model may be viewed as sort of internal working model of the situation described in a text. So as a reader understands it, in other words, the reader creates some sort of mental representation that contains main elements of the text. So these elements are represented in a way that is relatively easy to say, or list that is simpler and more concrete.